Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. I know I'm behind the time, but it don't matter because you come into this right on time. Let me make sure I get Instagram started. What a blessing it is to be here today. Yep. There we go. Hello. It's been an extra week. Yeah, last week I missed you all because I actually was teaching a course and had to be in the boondocks somewhere in the boonies. Um, I was in the boondocks with no reception, no nothing. And I was like, what am I doing? I should have just made sure that I canceled it. But here we are this week. Jam packed, y'all. Jam packed. There's so much to share, so much to go through. I definitely want to make sure that you share with me the things that you have going on in the community. Um, Make sure you drop in the comments all of the events and things that you have going on this week. So, good morning. I'm Jackie Glass, Mama, Navy vet, certified doer, and the laced up legislator for the House of Delegates, 93rd District. I've just had two meetings, two opportunities, speaking opportunities, where people were like, Jackie in the 89th. I'm like, we got to get this district right. Most of you know that we went through redistricting, and so now I represent a different portion of the city of Norfolk in the General Assembly. Let me turn this light off. A different portion of Norfolk in the General Assembly. So, but I'm here. I'm here for for the city, for the Commonwealth, doing the work. What I want to do today is, good morning, give the opportunity. We're going to walk through what happened last week with this on Monday. As many of you may have known and may know, or you may have seen it on the news, that I had to go back up to Richmond on Monday for what we call a special session, right? So I went up to Richmond on Monday for a special session just so we could finish the budget. Y'all, it's like, if you're in a relationship with a partner and you like, yeah, we're gonna meet up on Sunday and get all of our work done. But then on Sunday, y'all didn't get all y'all work done. So y'all like, let's just reschedule for another day. And then we're gonna finish everything up. That's what we did. Like, we were supposed to get, as you know, the legislature always starts the second Wednesday in January, and it either runs 45 days or it runs 60 days, right? And so, because we didn't get all of our work done in the 60 days because of this year, we had to do this special section. Hey, I see the waves. We had to do this special session. And really, the special session was just for our daggum budget, y'all. How we going to spend this money? I think it might be a good idea. And drop it in the comments if you think it might be a good idea to do a town hall just on like how to read the budget, because it's so fascinating that it's something that my first year I did not get into. Like, I did not know, like, I wasn't carrying. And most of you know, I got elected the night before the General Assembly, the state legislature started. And so I came in hot. But that next year I was like, this money, this money is intriguing. I also think it might be a good idea to do this, like just a budget, like teaching the budget sort of course, because I think it's equally important to understand your local budget and how that ties with the state budget, because that was a thing for me too, right? Particularly with like schools, right? So I'm like, we always get this fully fund. We always get this. And then knowing what piece of the pie my city pays for the schools, what piece of the pie the state pays, and where other incomes and things come from. But yeah, I see some of you said that's a good idea. Budget town halls are the best. Yeah, just on budgeting, like not summer school, because we're definitely going to do summer school. I think you all know summer school is going to be, I think I have July 27th. A save the date will be coming out for summer school. And summer school, if y'all never been to summer school for certified doers, first off, good morning, certified doer. Good morning to you. Look at you up and at it. But the summer school for certified doer is going to walk you through the legislative process. And the goal is that I think we built summer school fairly well, that we may start doing some advanced summer school next year. That's not going to happen this year. I don't have the bandwidth for it. But because we have more doers like you getting involved, people are now understanding the process in a very real way. Let me check the comments, and I'm going to tell you I'll tell you something that happened to me out front of Wawa. Some crazy. Well, I want to say it's crazy. And if you don't know what Wawa is, because I know some people are like, what is a Wawa? Yes, there are people from different places. It's a gas station, a convenience store. They got food and all the good stuff. But I'm going to tell you what happened to me outside in front of Wawa regarding legislation that I thought was like nutso. But in the comments. So here, Coffee with Muslima says, yes, please. And then Jason Melendez, VA, says, budget town halls are great ideas. Yes. Not where we're talking about what's in the budget, but like how to find it and read it, because it's some stuff. PJ James, hey, says, I haven't dove into everything from the budget, but to God be the glory for pay raises for teachers and thousands that will come home early from prison. Yeah, man. Yeah, man, that's the work. Sometimes we're legislating through the budget, so it's super important to like understand what is happening in there. And that's not always the best thing to do, but sometimes that's just how stuff goes down. But let me tell you what happened to me in front of Wawa. I was having I'm gonna just say it, I was having a shit day, right? It was just, and I can't even remember, but I know internally I was just going through it. And I ran home and my daughter was like, hey, Mom, don't forget that I need this money for this field trip for tomorrow. I had just walked in the house and I walked right back. I don't know, y'all got kids or you had some little citizens, you know, sometimes they be asking for stuff at the last minute. This was not her fault. I forgot. And I walked myself in the house knowing I'm going to have to go back out. I get in my truck. I drive up the street to the Wawa on Princess Anne and Ingleside. And I park in a very weird spot, like really off to where I got to walk. Because sometimes I know to park away from places to give myself the opportunity to clear my head before I walk in a space. If I'm going to be around people, because I'm a public figure, you don't want to walk in with a scowl on your face. I walk in, I walk by this guy, and he is like, if I was to judge him, right, because my bias showed up, and let me just say, checking my bias showed up. He looked like he might have been unhoused, or like he appeared that way, right? I'm just not even, and again, that's bias leading. My bias was leading. I go into Wawa, I come back out, and the man yells at me, not yell at me, but says, hey, what bills you doing right now? What bills you got going on? And I said, I was super startled. I was caught off guard, and I was just like, what you, yeah, you know, I explained to him that the legislative session was over, that we're going back to do the budget. He's like, yeah, man, I watch you on, so shout out to him. And I actually started following him because he's on Instagram. And he's like, you know, I really love the creative stuff because I'm a creative and da-da-da. And like, we talked, and I walked to the car, and I don't know, I just started crying. I just started crying. One, I checked, I was like, look at your prejudice, thinking like this guy was, and I still spoke to him walking in. Like, you know, it's not a thing. I think we should, you know, speaking it, being cordial doesn't cost you anything. And I got back out of the car and I walked over to the guy, and I just hugged him because it was work. It was something to do. And I can't now remember why I was so upset. It was something that had to do with my legislative duties. And I was just like having that moment of like, what am I doing here? Like, these are not my people. You know, like I was having one of those moments, and he just like affirmed to me that we're all in spaces and places for reasons, and it's not going to feel good all the time. I hugged him and I told him, you know, I was like, I don't mean to, like, I needed that. I needed to hear. He was just like grateful the way. And I was like, I needed to hear that. So shout out to him. I'm trying to remember his Instagram handle because I went and followed him immediately. But I say that because I tell the story about that because one, we all deserve to be a part of this process, no matter how we show up. Right. Like, I don't care if you don't have to have a suit and high heels to show up. You don't have to, be, like you should be able to interface with this information and understand it. That you should have the privilege and to be able to have it understood to you for the sake of your livelihood, because our entire lives are legislated. That is real. And the more and more I get into this work, particularly at the state level, because we're a Dillon rule state, so that means that all of the powers of the little towns, cities, and counties come from the state. And we can't even do things in our own backyard because the state has so much control. And why shouldn't you know exactly how things run in a way that is understandable to you so that you can enact change, or at least just do our ABCs? And if you know our ABCs, drop them in the comments. You should be typing already. You know our ABCs, right? To be able to do our ABCs, we got to know this stuff. So I think that you and me, certified doers, and shout out to PJ James and shout out to Dominique and who else was it? Coffee with the Muslima and Elizabeth Ocamp for saying, yes, we should do it, because we're going to do it. We decided it this morning. So if any doers want to thank another doers, we decided it today. We're going to make it happen. I think it'll be great. I think it'll be a good opportunity. And if you have interfaced with the budget, whether it's a state budget or it's a local budget, like, I encourage you, like, hit me up, because I like to make sure the rooms that we have people with experience, people without experience, so that at then doers, we can connect the dots and get more done. Sound good? Great. Now, this Monday, what happened was I went up to Richmond and we agreed on a budget. What typically would have happened is we would have done that in session. The House and the Senate came together and got a budget compromise and sent that to the governor, who then had all of those notes. If you guys have been watching, if you've been a part, then the governor had over 200, 300 amendments to the freaking budget. That's a lot. And so we were not able to get that done on reconvene, which happened I can't remember how many days after. My brain is farted a little bit, but reconvene was when we go back to deal with all of the governor's notes and comments about legislation. We were not able to get the budget done. So that's why we're in special session. We did get the budget done, right? We did get a budget done, I want to put this really clearly to you all, because right now we're dealing with some things there are real legit complaints, and the administration has done some things and is walking some lines that are fine lines that are going to be some issues that have been issues through the budget, but it is a compromise. Okay, you can say it would be a compromise. Which means we don't get everything that we want. No one gets everything that they want in the budget. However, it's a really good budget. I mean, no crap, not to be being funny. I was really proud of the way folks showed up. And as I pull up my budget notes, it is a really good budget. And as I do that, I want to remind you that part of our work here, the ABCs of local governance, is accountability, or just governance, accountability, boldness, and coalition building, something that we're doing every day. So this budget, all right, as you all, I'm not we, I guess, are kind of people that don't, at least I like to think that we're people that I'm less inclined to worry about what's happening in the political side of things and more concerned. Hold on, I'm trying to make sure I lost Instagram. And more concerned with the facts of things, right? Less inclined. So back a bit ago, we had the rift between the legislative branch and the executive branch, where the executive branch was saying, hey, the budget was backwards, when there was essentially, there is a record number of investments in education, healthcare systems, helping, keep people to work. Here we go. Y'all ready for some numbers? You ready for some numbers of why it's a good budget? So we ended up getting a historic amount of funding for education. $2 billion, over $2 billion. I said it with a B, for K-12 and boosted educational opportunities for universities of over 700 million for higher education improvement. So that includes um, 370 million for the at-risk add-on, right? That's a huge deal for any so at-risk add-on is that money that's added on for disadvantaged students, which is ultimately going to provide over $70 million to increase English as a second learners. I don't know how you all's communities looks, but we are having more and more students that are moving, scholars that are moving into the community that English is not their first language. And God forbid, America, that we realize that we don't have a national language and that a part of our role is to support the melting pot of us, which has been a huge issue, particularly with Spanish-speaking students here in our schools. I know this because I used to have to bring books to read in Spanish to bridge the gap. Okay, so was already mentioned the teachers, some people that's received that 3% salary increase for both years, right? So a total of 6%. So we have a biennium budget, meaning it's a 2-year budget. We map out our money for 2 years. And so they're going to get an increase this year and they're going to get an increase next year. If you know, drop in the comment if you know, when do bills become laws? After they go through the process, what date in Virginia do they actually become a law? If you know, drop that in the comments, okay? And then some working family stuff. It got excluded the digital tax and doesn't require. So we were going to start having a digital tax on digital sales, which means you were going to pay another tax for things that you bought on anything you bought online. There is a 3% increase for state employees. Guys, it's not enough. It's not enough. Remember, I said that one thing that keeps me up at night, housing. We put $175 million into the Virginia Housing Trust to create more affordable housing and create or preserve. Because in a city like Norfolk, we've got a lot of old spaces and places. So there's pieces there, right? What else? We got to figure this out because these folks is getting money over in other places and we need to make it happen. Infrastructure, I'm thinking about healthcare. So we allocated $58 million to the general fund to sort of help with the crisis systems. There is $10 million is going to be invested in the Virginia Mental Health Access Program, which addresses the shortage of pediatric mental health specialists. And that's a $4 million increase from last year. We allocated $12 million for child psychiatry and $5 million for school-based health integration grants, right? So things to happen in school. And shout out to TCC because they have this amazing app that I've talked to the educators and students that they can get, that's free to them, where they can get mental health support right in time, right? But those are just some of the things I do want to make sure, I'm sorry if y'all missed our big town hall, because I really wish everybody could be there. Let me give it to Lamont Walls. I wish everybody could be there because we were talking about the budget, but those are just some little bit of highlights. Shout out to Lamont, because yes, in the Commonwealth of Virginia, our laws are enacted on July 1st. So here's what's going to happen, because you doers are going to know a little bit more. You're going to know a little bit better. What's going to happen is the last week of June, mid-June, and even around July 1st, the news stations are going to start saying new laws that will go into effect on July 1st. Did you know, right? So they're talking about the surface, some of the things right now, but you'll start seeing list of some of the things that'll be in effect. Come July 1. I was thinking about, I can't remember, but yes, July 1 is when our laws, when our bills that made it through the process become law. My question for you all is, as we look forward to the rest of the year, what is your priority? Because what's going to happen, y'all, is, even though like we just finished the budget, and to top it off, I'll talk a little bit more like that about it. We're still in special session. Even though we are just finished the budget, we're still in special session. The clock is about to start for us to start to actually get ready for January 2025. So I know that my team and I are preparing ourselves to get legislation together for next year. This is the time to get in. Same thing for your city council, right? They just did their budget. They just approved their budget. And I'm telling you, they're already thinking about next year. They're already thinking about the ideas. If, let's say, you have an idea and you live in the city of Norfolk and you have an idea for a bill that you want the city to do, to get on board with, the person that you talk to is a woman called Jessica Dennis. And let me see if I'm saying her name, but I want to make sure I put her information in the chat. She is the liaison between us, between like the state level and the city. Her official title is the intergovernmental liaison. And so what she does is just between, she makes sure there's that bridge between the state level and the city. I'm making sure I get her number, Jessica Dennis. And we talk to her a lot. Let's just say I talk to her a lot, just on making sure that things are in line with what the city has going on. I just dropped that in the chat on all the places. I'm about to drop it on Instagram. Jessica just is an asset in understanding what has our city put on their legislative agenda to present to the General Assembly. Truth of the matter is I look at it as the 93rd district is my constituent, but so is the city of Norfolk proper, right? So when I'm trying to get my legislation together, I'm going to the residents, right? People in the city of Norfolk, particularly people in the district I represent. And then I'm going to the city of Norfolk and saying, hey, what are the priorities for you all? Because remember, like I said, we are a Dillon Rule state, meaning that our localities, our counties, cities, and towns can't do anything without the permission of the General Assembly. Does that make sense? So I hold those two constituents in hand. And again, I dropped her information in the chat. Oh, PJ James said the 17th too. So I want to shout you out on Instagram for saying July 1st. But again, our accountability, boldness, and coalition building is essentially a major form of what we do. I mentioned, for accountability purposes, we are still in special session. I can't express to you, I'm a little disappointed as to why we're still in special session, but I understand it's an opportunity for us to do some things while we're here in special session. I can be called up to Richmond with 48-hour notice right now because we're still in session, right? Does that make sense? So they could be like, yo, you got to be up here on Monday and I got to be up there on Monday. That makes sense? The only reason that we're still in special session is because wait a second. I'm going to ask you to guess why. Why you think what do you think is important enough for us to still be in special session? What do you think is like an important enough issue that we're like, you know what, we might want to stay convened because we need to work on this issue? I want you to drop it in the comments. What do you think it is? What you think it is? And why are you thinking about it? Drop it in the comments, because I really want to know, what would you feel is important enough? And I also asked, what are the things that you're working on for next year that you're going to start? Because Doers, we're going to have an opportunity for you to do a legislative pitch. We're going to do a pitch contest for legislation. So that's why I'm like telling you, like, put your stuff in the chat. You need to start working with us so where we can get you working with the right people to see if you've got an idea that can be brought to the General Assembly, the 2025 General Assembly. But what issue do you think is important enough for us in the Commonwealth of Virginia to still have legislators ready to come up to Richmond at the drop of a dime? And I don't see any guesses. Y'all got to guess something. You got what is important enough. What is important enough in the interim? If you have not subscribed to our newsletter, please do so. We give, I got this thing rolling and it's got old information on it, y'all. Y'all didn't tell me that. But what issue do you believe is important enough for us to be back in special session? I would love to know. Um, I see somebody just tapped in. Uh, are there still bills that are not finalized? Well, with special session, any of the old stuff is done, like it's done. However, with special session, people can bring forth new legislation. So essentially, the bill that we had to deal with on Monday was the budget bill, but it was a brand new budget bill. When we were in regular session, it was House Bill 29 and 30. When we were in special session, it's House Bill 6001. So only new legislation at this point can come forth in special session. And I believe in our for what we were doing, they decided that we can only bring bills that are related to the budget. If I remember correctly, I was sort of nope. It's okay that you misunderstood the question. So let me just tell you the answer, y'all. We are still in session to possibly deal with skill games legislation. Not kidding. I can't even make this up. Skill games. We're in session to deal with skill games. And go ahead. What is a skill game? If you know what a skill game is, drop it in the comments. What is a skill game? Yes, we are still in special games for the pending skill games legislation. I am not kidding. And just your responses. I don't know if y'all can see this, but Elizabeth, ew, I know. Julia Newton, no, yes. I wish I was making this up. So skill games are essentially the slot games. There you go, Elizabeth, that you see when you go to 7-Eleven, you go to all these different places. It's those games. So in the budget, the executive branch put a note in there that there will be no skill games allowed within 30 miles of a casino. And I think he shifted it to within 35 miles. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. And that caused a rift with a lot of shop owners. I think in the news, some of the shop owners have refused to sell lottery tickets until they're able to have skill games. It's been sort of a big rift for people who appreciate gambling in that way. There's a couple sides of the argument, and I'm going to be very diplomatic as I speak on this. There's the shop owners who said, hey, this is a good source of revenue for us. This is great. There's the casinos who say, well, they're not regulated like we are. And so it's not fair. You've got two gambling entities fussing over who gets to bring gambling to your doorstep. Part of the issue there is that the skill games were supposed to be shut down years ago. The legislature, before I was in the Virginia legislature, had already decided that they needed to shut it down. I think during the Northam administration, there was the previous, governor's administration, there was some back and forth, and they were supposed to shut down. And it's been several times where the skill games, meaning the folks who have these slot machines in their businesses, were like, nah, we gonna do whatever we want. So like I take issue with that. I also take issue with how if they're going to be here, even though the people who have them, believe them to be the single most important revenue generator, which again, that part of it is beyond me. Oh, bye. I'll see you. Happy SOL. You got this. Yeah, girl, you got this. There's a piece of it where it's like, if I could be candid, if I could just be candid for a minute, there are more important issues to stay in special session other than skill games, right? I can think of a bunch of them. I can think of a bunch of them. However, this is where we are. this is people's top priority. Some of them it's because they got a lot of folks in their area. Some of them it's politically motivated. I don't give a shit what was motivating people to stay in for. Excuse me. I don't care. I don't actually care what the motivation is for staying in special session for skill games. But I do feel some type of way, and I'm saying this out loud because it's the truth. I feel some type of way still being able to be called to Richmond on a 48 hours notice over skill games. I do. It's not the budget. That's my feelings. Those are the feelings of Delegate Jackie Glass. They are not representative of anyone else's. Those are mine. Okay. I just want to say that out loud. Is quite frankly bullshit. There are issues that are going to be at our doorstep that I do think a special session would be useful for. And know that from my lens is that I'm trying to advocate in a very meaningful way, or like thinking with my team how we can advocate to use this time very wisely on other issues that are quite frankly, to Julia's point, more important. More important. No one's going to live or die off of skill games. Okay. No one's going to live or die off of skill games. I don't see it. Yeah. So I don't see it. So Kathy said, I agree. So sorry, I missed when will this be heard? So we are not, when will this be heard? I'll leave that up for a second. So we're not there. There's not a guarantee that we're going to hear any skill games legislation. So let me not give you that idea, but it's the idea that giving me the opportunity to still work on skill games legislation, or if there's a compromise there. If I could be so candid, because this is the space and I'm willing to accept the consequences for what I say, because I'm about to say something. The issue is that there are sometimes issues, and this is where I think you all lose faith and trust in process. That, like, as an everyday person, this is where I think everyday people lose faith in process and think that everything we do is motivated by money or whatever. My hypothesis is that this is a money thing. A lot of donors are in that business, right? There's a lot of, actually, it's a large voting block of people that are in the business, and that there are motivations that obviously have to do with people's funding source, right? How they get funded as candidates to take the next step or to remain in place. This is part of the reason why I think that when we talk about for real campaign finance reform, when we talk about it, it's so needed. And I just went to an event where we were talking about publicly funded campaigns and how they have shifted things in politics. I don't care what people's motivations are, but I know that if I was not elected, and actually I'm still a Virginia resident, I'm still a resident of Norfolk who has to live, in these spaces, I can understand why it would be disheartening to hear that we are still in a special session over skill games, right? I know that. It doesn't even feel good me saying it. Julia said, be careful with your words. We need you. Yeah, I do have to be careful with my words. And but really that is I find it very frustrating. I'm okay with saying that. I'm okay with saying that, like, I don't care what's motivating people to do this or what the motivation behind it was. I just don't. But it looks really crazy for us as the Commonwealth to say that, to have that as one of the sticking points of staying in special session. And when there are other things. For context, I believe we've been in special session 1.4 gun legislation some years ago. One, because we didn't finish our work, right? At one point we didn't finish our work, but there are many reasons this just doesn't, and and if it's something different, if the messaging behind what this is different, I'll definitely make sure I communicate that to y'all. But that's kind of what was communicated to us, is that there's some opportunity for people to still, and then me watching the news, because to be honest with you, sometimes I'm just like y'all, I'm watching the news to figure out what is happening. I'm not high on the total poll. I just do my part. Kathy Sheldon said it is a money thing, and one of the legislators that brought the legislation has represented these skill games companies as an attorney. Not genuinely not surprised. Genuinely not surprised. And you said, and another thing, let me make sure I'm, yeah. And the other side of it, yes, other things are much more impactful to health, safety, and citizens. I can't agree more. And know that from the position that I sit in, my influence is what it is. I work really hard to build relationships, to build things for us, right? Like collectively, to Julia saying, be careful. I work really hard to work with people I don't want to work with, even though I'll throw a little tantrum on the side. So shout out to my inner circle for dealing with my tantrums. But these are those things. And I'm saying this out loud because I don't want us to lose faith in the process. There's still space. And I'm looking on Instagram. I see somebody said, what's happening with encampments? No. So I'll touch on the encampments on the policy side, because on Instagram you mentioned that PJ James 17. I will talk a little bit about that. But yeah, the slot machines, gambling. Yeah, my husband literally just asked that last night. Yeah, it's always about money. Yep, always. And it's, let me say this, sometimes it's not about money, it's about position and power. And I do not want us to get in a place where we think position and power are bad things, because I know that there are good people out there like, Jackie, we want you in a place, in a position to hold power to do good things. It's not all bad. And know that everybody's not wielding their power for negative things. I can assure you from my lens, there are some amazing people, at least at the state level, that I know of, that are working really hard, that also, like me, struggle to have the funding to stay in these places sometimes, right? Like, because there is an aspect of being able to contribute and being able to do the things, right? So for me, and then since I'm going to segue into this because I should be getting offline with you guys because we've been on here 36 minutes. For me, most of the funding that's contributed to me goes back to making sure that I have staff so that I can show up in a very real way. I don't necessarily have any aspirations for whatever the next step is. There is this mindset of building your coffers, right? Building up your coffers, because sometimes there's nothing wrong with being ambitious. There are people that just want to take that next step. But I do think that it makes it really icky for us as politicians, because, guys, I'm just going to remind you, I am a politician. Even though in America it's seen as a very negative, like a cuss word, I am in the business of policy work. And that's my job. That it isn't all about money for everybody. Oh. I'll see you. Be well. It isn't all about money for everyone. All right. So it does get icky, and that rises to the top, but it's not always that way. All right. So there is that. We've got more. I will keep you updated. Maybe some other things to be hopeful. There may be some other things that will come out of this special session. There may be some other things that will come out of this special session outside of the skill games. Who knows? Because it is an opportunity. Let's think about this as an opportunity. It may be someone else's ish, but this may be an opportunity for us to do some good things. And if you got some ideas, let us know. I'm meeting with my team just to talk about some other work that we can be done forward facing while we're in special session. Got a couple more things, and then I'm going to head out of here, doers. All right. Would your son be interested in part A? I will. What I'll do is I will share his information with you, his phone number, and you can hit him up. He's a young man now. I don't get to manage his schedule. I don't get to tell. I'm a consultant. I'm not a manager anymore, unfortunately, Lamont. But I will definitely make sure that I give him your information. In July, I'm not sure if he's here. I think he's actually doing some spoken word out of town, so I'm not sure. But I will check with him. He just left. Lastly, if skill games stay around, they should be regulated just like lottery and casinos, and some local zoning control needs to be a part of that solution. Yeah, that's the big thing, is that what they fall under. We struggled during session about skill games, whether they were going to fall under ABC or the lottery. There was this whole back and forth about who's equipped. Part of the plan was to, start them under ABC and then switch them over to lottery. But in the conversations with like-minded folks, we were sort of saying, like, why would we do that? We may get to a point where the ABC is like, no, I don't want to let them go. Or I just think that when we do it, it should be sound. It should be clear. Whatever that looks like. You probably won't catch me voting yes on skill games. I just have had instances where I've seen young people on the skill games and had to like call them out for it. Regulation is a very difficult and hard part of it. I go to the convenience. I actually just went around places just looking and seeing them in the bathrooms and seeing them. It's kind of wild to me. I don't know that I'm a huge fan of that aspect of it, but I also believe that if the Commonwealth, if our representatives, remember we live in a constitutional democratic republic, we are guided by a constitution where we get to vote the people that show up for us. So the people that show up for us, myself included, at the state level, in my decision making, if my cohorts decide that we will have skill games, to Kathy Shelton's point, I believe we need to be regulated and we need to have a clear path for what that looks like. Just like my barber gets inspected. She just had an inspection the other day. Just like the restaurants in the area get their inspections and do things, like we still need to be able to do that. And that is the biggest thing here too for me, is if we do decide the enforcement piece is going to be a huge part of it. I just don't know that we have the human capital for it, but we'll see, right? Like we shall see. But we will. All right. So here's the deal. You guys are going to stay in touch. Next Thursday, we have another morning due for certified doers. We will start bringing guests in. The team is actually working on bringing organizations in so that you guys can learn a little bit more about things that you want to get involved in. So please don't hesitate to reach out and be like, hey, I would love for you to have somebody on about this topic. We want to give other doers the opportunity to share the platform. Secondly, if you haven't subscribed for the newsletter, please do it. Just go ahead and do it. Just do it. Just sign up for the newsletter. It ain't no thing. It ain't no thing. If you need anything, scrolling across the bottom is our website and information. If you feel so inclined, put me in your budget. Like, go ahead. Like, I know she's on here. I just shout out Elizabeth Ockham all the time because every month I see her and her dollar amount come forth. And I'm so grateful to be in your budget. It really does help the mission. StreamYard is what I use here. I pay for that out of the budget. And I'm sure you appreciate having my district director, Jay, on board, which comes out of the funds that I've fundraised. So put me on your budget. It can be $10 a month. You know what you'll pay for our ability to text her, all the different things. But I think that's it, y'all. We've been on here long enough talking about all the things. So until next time, I'm Jackie Glass Mama, Navy Vet certified doer, laced up legislator for the House of Delegates in 93rd District. So grateful to serve with certified doers just like you. And I will see you next week. Make it a great day. See ya.